Caden, I'm very excited that you're picking up the slack on the lack of enthusiasm this morning. So ready to do some learning. Good morning. Happy Thursday. This is AP Computer Science A. This is April 30th. Hopefully everybody's having a great day so far. Staying safe, staying healthy, all that good stuff. Today, rather than go through another free response question with you today, what I would like to do is pick up our discussion from last class and talk about scoring of the free response questions. After that, I'll talk a little bit about our final project and what that should look like and give you a couple more guidelines for that now that I've seen all of your proposals and given you feedback on it. And lastly, I want to just answer any questions or comments or concerns you may have. So what I have scheduled in my mind will take probably about 20 minutes to deliver to you. And then after that, we have about 10 minutes. I'd like to answer any questions that you have concerning this class, the structure, the AP exam, that type of stuff. A couple reminders that I want to give to you. Number one is that if you haven't done so already, please make sure you fill out the attendance form on Classroom. Number two, we do have a graded progress assessment coming your way at the end of class. It's another free response question, just like the first one. Well, the question is different, but the structure is just like the first one, where I'm asking you to respond to that one FRQ and send it to me. Send your code to me on a shared Google Doc. If you prefer to write it out by hand, you can certainly take pictures of your work and upload that as well. Per popular demand, it is going to be on Google Classroom this time, so it's scheduled to go up right at the end of this class. It'll be posted on Classroom. You'll be able to submit your work until Sunday night. Okay? Again, that Sunday night deadline is very important because it allows me to have enough time to provide you with feedback, to actually look at it, post an answer, give you feedback, that type of stuff. If you have the opportunity to do it on time, please make sure you do it on time. If it just gets delayed, well then it delays me from being able to post the answers because I can't post the answers and then accept a late submission. That's a little fishy. So please make sure you just get that in when you can. All right. The last thing I want to remind you of is the fact that tomorrow, which is Friday, April 1st, we actually do have a scheduled call with some Computer Science A veterans, which is very exciting. We're doing that call via Discord. It's our Discord server that we have for AP Computer Science A. It's from 2 o'clock to 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So if you want to stop on by and just chat with some people that have taken the AP exam last year, talk about what to expect on the exam, maybe they'll give you some tips and tricks, and maybe just catch up with how people are doing now and how those skills have been useful for them going forward. I'm really looking forward to that. If for whatever reason you can't, it's absolutely not mandatory. I just want to throw that out there. It's very much optional. I'm not requiring you to do it by any means. But if you want to come, we would love to have your company. I think it would be very beneficial for you to be able to talk to people that have done the AP Computer Science A exam. Again, that is going to be over Discord. If you cannot attend, but you still want to ask questions to people that are going to be there, you can feel free to send me those questions via email or just send them in a Google Hangouts message or whatever, and just say, hey, I'd like to know the answers to these. If you could ask these, that'd be great. All right? So again, that's going to be our little AP Computer Science A Discord. Okay? Any questions about that at all? All right, awesome, fantastic. So that's pretty much all I got for reminders. Again, just make sure you get that in on time. As far as your project proposals went, the project proposals I think were overall very good. I think the biggest point of feedback that I had for a lot of people was in terms of scale. Just remember that some of you were like, hey, we're going to have this RPG, this epic quest. And I was like, that's awesome. And you were like, we're going to venture through 10 areas, 10 zones. And I'm like, 10 zones? That's a lot. That is a lot of material, especially with the time constraints provided by distance learning. I would definitely try to narrow it down. All right. I heard a lot of great ideas over the proposals. Some are traditional of what I'd expect for a text-based game, and some are definitely very unique. I think that some people are picking certain games that are already established. Like one of the popular ideas, Brandon, I'm going to call you out a little bit. He said it was a Minesweeper game that he wanted to develop, essentially Minesweeper in Java. I thought that was a pretty cool idea. It's already an established thing. We already know what the rules are. You just have to code all the logic and make it work. Another person was thinking of doing virtual, what the heck was it? I'm trying to think. Another person was thinking of doing Oh, was thinking of doing a dating sim. That was Jack and Caden. I thought that was a really funny idea. Just a basic dating simulator. That's a really cool idea because you could have all different objects with the all the different traits and probably use inheritance to be able to make sure you code that efficiently. I think that's really fun and it's a really cool little thing to just demonstrate all of your skills. That's really the important thing is you're not trying to make this next big, giant video game. It's just a showcase that you understand what the skills that you've or you understand the skills that we've discussed in AP Computer Science A, and you're able to demonstrate that by making a fun, cool little thing. All right. I was just talking to Andrew before I started recording. Again, I think one of the big takeaways about the final project is the fact that it's something that you can take with you after this class to say, this is an actual application that I made, and it's of my own creation, and it's really neat. I talked about how the fact that in college we had to do something similar. Our project group made something that was based on Battleship, featuring an intelligent AI opponent that adapted to your moves. So, for example, if you continuously put battleships in the upper left part of the map every time, the AI would eventually start targeting that position first. So I thought that was a pretty fun project, and it worked really well. And I was able to show that off in some job interviews after the fact, and actually helped me get an internship back in 2011-ish. All right, so hopefully that can have the same impact on you, where you're like, hey, I had this application that I made in AP Computer Science, and you could show that off to employers or college admissions, or even just talk about it. I think goes a long way. As far as how it's actually going to be graded, I will get out a rubric to you soon. I have to make it when I have the extra time, which extra time is hard to come by these days. But I will definitely try to make that rubric and get it out to you. Essentially, I am going to count your final project as 2 grades. 1 grade as to if it functions and if it works properly, and the other grade of does it actually demonstrates all the intended skills that we've learned. Not all, I shouldn't say all. The intended skills that we've learned in AP Computer Science A. So for example, if you submit a code to me that is a functional game and it is a fun game, but it's just like a giant list of, it just uses an array and really nothing else, then that's not very indicative to me that you've understood the concepts that we've talked about in AP Computer Science A. If it's just this big long array and it's just like, I don't know, hit enter 100 times to traverse the array. Wow, that would be a great game, but not really demonstrating that you understand what's going on. Okay, so that'll probably be the two grades. I'll make sure to get specific rubrics and language out to you though soon, so that you can have that. By the way, in case you're wondering, I want to pull up my calendar here. In case you're wondering when the project is due, I was aiming for, let me know if you think this is a good or bad date, I was aiming for having it due by May 31st. That's Sunday night. If you think you can, if you have any feedback about that deadline, please make sure to let me know. But that's the deadline I think is reasonable to aim for. That gives you a month to get it done. I know you have a lot going on in addition during this time, but I think that's more than reasonable. Keep in mind that with the distance learning stuff going on right now, I definitely have my expectations, I don't want to say tempered because I don't want to make it sound like I don't expect you to do great work, but I definitely am expecting not as complete of a product as I would be expecting as if we were in class, if that makes sense. Normally, if we were in class and you were making, say, an RPG, I would say, hey, if you have 5 levels, I think that's a really great length for an RPG. Here, definitely if you can get 2 levels, I think that would be great. I think that'd be great. You know what I mean? That sense of scale. Not to say you're not going to do great work. I have very high confidence that a lot of people in this class are going to submit some great work. It's just saying that you don't have to go all out. Does anyone have any questions or feedback in regards to the final project or the deadline or anything I just mentioned? Is that a fair deadline, you think? Is that reasonable?
Yes.
Yes? Reasonable? Anybody else? We got 1 vote for reasonable. All right, majority wins, I guess, of 1. 1 majority. All right, 2. We got 2 reasonable votes. Excellent. Okay, if you do have any questions at any point, just feel free to reach out. All right, but I think that shooting for then as a deadline would be reasonable. All right. So the last thing I really want to talk to you about today is I want to talk to you about the scoring of the AP Computer Science A exam. I know some of you were actually reaching out to me saying that you were worried about the free response questions, as you probably should be. I mean, it is the AP exam. It's certainly not easy. I don't think you should be panicking, but it's definitely worth being worried about. It's a big deal. But a lot of you are worried about the fact that if you get some parts of the free response exam or free response questions incorrect, does that mean that the whole thing is incorrect? Like, what's the threshold on partial credit? Is there partial credit at all? Or is it just if it works, it's right, if it's wrong, it doesn't? And then how can I try to get as much credit as possible even if I don't know the exact solution? So say you were at a problem like this and you kind of knew what you had to do, but you weren't able to translate it into code, or you were missing like a key step. How much partial credit does that get me, and what do I have to do? All right, so that's what I wanted to talk to you about today. This was the example we did last time. It is still on Classroom if you want to pull it up and follow along. It's this free response question about a product review. So we had this, just to recap quickly, it was a program that pretty much allowed you to sift through product reviews or a specific product and filter out how many good reviews there were. We had this method that we wrote in part A called add review, where I added the review to the list. We said if the product is not already there, we just add the product as well. Okay. We also had the second part where we said we're going to try to find the number of good reviews by looking through the review text and seeing does it contain the word best, and if it does, then that's good for us. Okay. And if it doesn't, then that we wouldn't count that as a number of good review. Mr. Ferreira, how's it going?
Good. Sorry I'm late.
No worries. We were just talking about the final project and stuff. You didn't miss too much in terms of actual coding.
Very good.
So, in any case. Yeah, we talked about this problem last time, right? So we were just about to talk about the scoring, about how this would actually be scored on the AP exam. So we actually have a great, this came right from AP Classroom, right here. See, this was the actual question. And I have this scoring guide that I do want to post on Google Classroom for you to review. All right, we don't need, get out of here, star files. All right, so what we have right here is pretty much the scoring guide for this specific question. Every question comes with, or at least it's accessible to teachers, a scoring guide as to how it would actually be scored on the AP exam. This pretty much just reiterates the prompt right here. It doesn't really show anything new. Reiterates the prompt, reiterates the prompt. So every question on the AP, every free response question on the AP Computer Science A exam is scored out of 9 points. Why they chose the value of 9, I have no idea, but it's scored out of 9 points. Those 9 points are divvied up between all of the parts of a question. So if a question has 3 parts, it may be that each part is worth 3 points, or if one of the parts is particularly more difficult and one of them's a little easier, it may be worth 3 points, 4 points, and 2 points, for example. Regardless, through some combination, it all comes out to be 9 points. All right. The way that these points are awarded is pretty much based on can you actually demonstrate each of the skills that's being assessed in the question. Take a look at this first problem here. You may remember that part A of this prompt, and if you can't remember, I'll just pull it up for a minute right now. Part A of this prompt was to write the add review method. This is what we did on Tuesday. The add review method added a single product review, represented by a product review object, to the review collector object. The add review method does the following. It says the product review object is added to the review list variable. Next, the product name from the product review object is added to product list if it's not already there. And then it says elements may be added in any order. So going on our scoring guide, you get 1 point for if you add a product review to review list. So regardless of the rest of your code, if you type this one line, that's a point. That's 1 point. Okay, you've successfully added the object. Next, we traverse product list. So if you can actually establish a loop, literally establishing this loop, that will successfully traverse product list without going out of bounds, that's worth another point. So you can say you get points if you use a for loop, enhanced for loop, or a while loop. Oh, I didn't mean to comment that. Rats. Next point, compares name in product list with name from review to be added. So here we are. We looked over here. This was our comparison. So typing in this comparison correctly would get you a point. Again, points can still be earned even if they use incorrectly accessed value for either name. So even if your syntax is a little off, like say you said dot I don't know, .name instead of .getName. Not the name of the method technically wouldn't compile, but the person scoring your code would be able to follow along with the logic of what's going on, and so that would still earn you credit. And that's a very important thing. It's important for the reviewer of the question to be able to follow along with your logic. All right, so we did that. We get another point for if we add the new product name to product list. Responses still earn the point, even if they added the new name under the wrong conditions or added an incorrectly accessed value. So as long as you somehow add the review to the add the name of the product to the product list in some capacity, you would still get a point. And lastly, our point is if you correctly actually do everything, you get sort of a bonus point. If you correctly add the product name to the list, if and only if the product name is not in the list, that gives you another point. All right, so that's your total of 6 points. Notice that even if you get this part, the actual logic of the program not correct, you could still earn probably 3 of the 6 points by saying we add the review to the list, we establish a for loop, and maybe we add the name to the product list, right? That's still 3 of the 4 points or 3 of the 6 points at least. So you can still fish for a lot of partial credit, and I definitely encourage you to do that. The big thing as far as scoring these types of questions go, I can speak from experience, is the fact that you need to be able to follow along with the logic of the code. All right, even if it contains syntax errors, like say you said found double equals true, that doesn't, like, yes, is not correct, will not compile, but doesn't, well, actually, I think that would compile anyway. It doesn't actually interfere with me understanding what you were trying to do. Does that make sense? Like, I understand that here you were trying to set found equal to true, right? Now, if your code is incomprehensible, that's where you run into issues of, all right, I don't really understand what's going on. I can't follow your logic. But if you can establish the logic of your code, that's a very, very important thing, all right? Comments specifically are not scored, so it's not like you can, try to explain, like write a paragraph to explain your process in a comment. That doesn't really fly, but it probably is beneficial for you to do, at least on your own, to help organize your work. So you can't just unfortunately respond in a paragraph. It's not a short answer question in that regard, but you can use comments if it helps you keep your work organized. Keep in mind that there are ways that you can lose points as well. So you can lose points if you use the following things. So you could lose a point potentially if you use array collection access confusion. So if you use the syntax of an array versus an array list, that could potentially lose you a point. You could lose a point if you use extraneous code that causes a side effect. So like printing to output, there's nothing in the code that says it should print. Incorrect precondition check. So if you have a check in there to make sure that you're greater than 0, you don't need to. The precondition already says that you're greater than 0. If you use excessive local variables, not use excessive local variables. If you don't declare local variables that you then use. So for example here, if I just said like, A equals true, it's like, well, what the heck is A? A isn't anything. I don't know what that actually does or means. So that could cause you to lose some points. Destruction of persistent data. So if you actually just deleted the array list, that would be very bad. You could lose a point on that. We're not trying to delete data from a list. And if you actually return a value, you should not be returning a value because the method is void. There should be no return statement, so that would cost you a point as well. Okay, so just keep in mind, there are ways that you can gain points. There's also ways that you can lose points. And then it actually gives what the canonical solution is, whatever the solution it would be intended for this problem. But again, as long as your code is equivalent to this, it does the same thing, then that's what they care about. Okay. Question about that at all? I definitely will post this on Classroom, though. I think it's a good guide for you to see how this actually works. All right, part B, I want to go through the same thing with you. Part B was where we actually added this thing to this list of reviews. Or once we added this thing to a list of reviews, we could then search through and find the number of good reviews. So what that involved was going through this array list called review list. And we were trying to say if the review actually matches the product that we're looking for, then we're going to check to see if the review text contains the word best. And if it does contain the word best, then we're just going to increase our counter of number of good reviews. And at the very, very end, we would return the number of good reviews. Okay, like I mentioned to you, the actual intended solution, I'll show you on here, was to say that if the index of best was greater than or equal to 0, super clever. I think that's really clever. I would not have thought of that, but definitely could be used. You could also use the dot contains method. That's a valid method that works. So I think it's a lot easier. It makes more sense to say dot contains, but if you wanted to use index of, that works too. So that's why I like showing you there's a lot of different ways you can get credit. The way that this works, right? So you get 1 point if you traverse review list with no bounds errors. So if you go through the list, if you just essentially establish this for loop, 1 point. You get a point if you select all and only reviews with matching product names that contain the word best. So essentially, typing in this line right here gets you a point, where you have to say the review text, you're looking for that to contain the word best. Another point, 4. Let's see, right here. Returning correct count of good values. So if you were able to successfully use number of good reviews and return number of good reviews, you would get a point. So this question is worth 3 points because that totals your 9. 6 points from the first question, 3 points from this question. Even though I think this question is actually maybe a little trickier, whatever, I didn't determine that. Notice that you can also lose points by using array collection and access confusion, just like before. If you use array syntax instead of array list syntax, you could potentially lose some points. Extraneous code that causes a side effect. Again, there's no printing. There's no reason to check for a precondition, right? You can lose points on that. If you use local variables without declaring them, and you destroy persistent data, like you delete the array list, you go through the list and shuffle stuff around, there's no reason for any of that stuff to occur, so that stuff could lose you some points. And then again, it shows the canonical solution, and it shows how that all worked out. All right? So I wanted to make sure I went through that with you just to hopefully shed some light on the fact that there is a lot of partial credit up for grabs on the AP Computer Science A exam. All right, considering it's only 2 questions, that means there's a total of 18 possible points. So how many of those points do you need in order to earn a score of a 3 or higher on the AP exam? I can't say for certain. I wish I could have that magic answer for you, but I'd say if you aim for, I mean, thinking from a logical perspective, right? I think like 17 or 18 would probably be a 5. Maybe 16, 15, maybe even 14 would be a 4. Maybe not 14, maybe 14. Maybe 13, 12, 11 would be a 3. So maybe shoot for like 11 points, 12 points out of the 18 would be maybe enough for a 3. I mean, I'm just saying that off the top of my head. I'm not trying to hold you to that. Please don't quote me on that. But I'm just trying to think logically of how those point breakdowns would probably occur. All right. So plenty of partial credit and plenty of opportunities for you to still earn some points. Questions on that? Okay. Just a couple other clarifications on the AP exam. I forwarded you to the email that Mr. Sullivan sent out regarding the AP exam. Cell phones are allowed to be used during the AP exam, which I did not expect, but that is a thing that you could do. You could have your phone next to you if you need to use it. You can have your notes alongside you, which I highly recommend that you do. You can have any other programs that you've worked on throughout the year. You can have access to them while you're taking the exam. So you literally get free range to use everything. The only things you cannot do are you cannot consult each other. It's like you can't have yourself on a conference call with everyone. That would be awesome, but we can't do that. And you cannot share the information or the questions with anyone or try to gain an unfair advantage by taking the exam for someone else or copying someone else's code for your response. That doesn't fly. All right. From what I've heard, there are a lot of measures in place, and I don't know any specifics, but I think that's intentional that I don't know any specifics because I don't think they want us to know how they're gonna do it. But from what I've heard, there's a lot of measures in place to ensure the security of the exam. All right. So I can't emphasize enough. Please do not try to be sneaky. You're already getting, I think, a lot of leeway with being able to have your notes available, being able to have a phone available, being able to have all sorts of other. You can have a Dr. Java up on another screen if you want to do that. But that being said, please don't try to gain an unfair advantage outside of things that you are already allowed to do. That the consequences are pretty severe, and by pretty severe, I mean very severe. The College Board, in very few words, is pretty much trying to say your academic career will be in shambles if you try to cheat on the AP exam. They're like, we're gonna send out records to every institution that you apply for. It'll go on your permanent record. You'll be banned from taking the SAT. Like, there's a long list. Just don't do it. Just don't do it. All right, I'm obligated to say that. Not that I anticipate anyone from here will. All right, that's all I got for you guys today. That gives us about 3 minutes left. Does anybody have any questions or concerns for me regarding the exam, regarding the work that's expected, regarding the final project, or anything else? Questions, questions, questions? No questions? I answered everyone's questions? Jack Henderson says, no questions in all caps. I didn't have to yell.
I think he's telling everyone not to have any questions.
Oh, yeah. He's like, no one ask a question so we can leave. Very clever. Fine, you win this round, my friend. All right, well, thank you for your attention and focus. I hope you have a great weekend and a great rest of your day. Remember to get that free response question to me by Sunday night so I can grade it on Monday. Other than that, enjoy your day. I will see you on next Tuesday, if not before. And I'll see you Friday, by the way, in our little Discord call with the AP Computer Science A veterans, if you choose to attend. Have a great day, everyone. Thank you. Oh, yeah.
Hey, Mr. Giorgio.
Now everyone talks. Where was everybody all class? It's craziness.
When's the next class?
Tuesday.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Bye.